Sports can be a great way of providing exercise to the body, as well as the mind. They are also an incredible source of entertainment. While some people pursue sports for recreational purposes, many take it to the professional level. Most physical sports have some level of risk involved. Players always have the chance of getting hurt or injured, be it severe injuries or just small ones, while participating in some most dangerous sports. And in extreme and dangerous sports, players have a high chance of getting an injury. In this video, we will be talking about top most dangerous sports. Bull riding. Bull riding is a rodeo sport that involves a rider getting on a bucking bull and attempting to stay mounted, while the animal tries to buck off the rider. American bull riding has been called the most dangerous 8 seconds in sports. To receive a score, the rider must stay on top of the bull for 8 seconds with the use of one hand gripped on a bull rope tied behind the bull's forelegs. Touching the bull or themselves with the free hand, or failing to reach the 8-second mark, results in a no-score ride. Depending on the bull riding organization and the contest, up to 4 judges might judge the rider and 4 judge the bull on their performance. For most organizations, a perfect score is 100 points. In general, most professional riders score in the neighborhood of the mid-70s to the high 80s. Outside of the United States, bull riding traditions with varying rules and histories also exist in Canada, Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Brazil, Paraguay, Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, the Philippines, Japan, South Africa, England, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Australia, and New Zealand, with the majority of them following similar rules, especially with the Professional Bull Riders, PBR, organization. Gymnastics. Gymnastics can be traced to exercise in ancient Greece, in Sparta and Athens. That exercise for that time was documented by Philostratus' work Gymnastics. Exercise in the gymnasium in later periods prepared men for war. The original term for the practice of gymnastics is from the related Greek verb gamma-upsilon omega, gymnazo, which translates as to train naked or nude, because young men exercising trained without clothing. In ancient Greece, physical fitness was a highly valued attribute in both men and women. It wasn't until after the Romans conquered Greece in 146 BC that gymnastics became more formalized and used to train men in warfare. Gymnastics is a sport that includes physical exercises requiring balance, strength, flexibility, agility, coordination, dedication, and endurance. The movements involved in gymnastics contribute to the development of the arms, legs, shoulders, back, chest, and abdominal muscle groups. Gymnastics evolved from exercises used by the ancient Greeks that included skills for mounting and dismounting a horse, and from circus performance skills. The most common form of competitive gymnastics is artistic gymnastics, AG, which consists of, for women, WAG, the event's floor, vault, uneven bars, and beam, and for men, MAG, the event's floor, vault, rings, pommel horse, parallel bars, and horizontal bar. The governing body for gymnastics throughout the world is the Fédération Internationale de Gymnastique, FIG. 8 sports are governed by the FIG, which include gymnastics for all, men's and women's artistic gymnastics, rhythmic gymnastics, trampolining, tumbling, acrobatic, aerobic and parkour. Disciplines not currently recognized by FIG include wheel gymnastics, aesthetic group gymnastics, team gym, and Malakamba. Mountaineering. Humans have been present in mountains since prehistory. The remains of Otzi, who lived in the 4th millennium BC, were found in a glacier in the Ötztal Alps. However, the highest mountains were rarely visited early on, and were often associated with supernatural or religious concepts. Nonetheless, there are many documented examples of people climbing mountains prior to the formal development of the sport in the 19th century, although many of these stories are sometimes considered fictional or legendary. Mountaineering is the set of outdoor activity that involves ascending tall mountains. Mountaineering-related activities include traditional outdoor climbing, skiing and traversing via ferratas. Indoor climbing, sport climbing and bouldering are also considered variants of mountaineering by some. Unlike most sports, mountaineering lacks widely applied formal rules, regulations, and governance. Mountaineers adhere to a large variety of techniques and philosophies when climbing mountains. Numerous local alpine clubs support mountaineers by hosting resources and social activities. A federation of alpine clubs, the International Climbing and Mountaineering Federation (UAA), is the International Olympic Committee-recognized world organization for mountaineering and climbing. The consequences of mountaineering on the natural environment can be seen in terms of individual components of the environment: land relief, soil, vegetation, fauna, and landscape, and location/zone of mountaineering activity, hiking, trekking, or climbing zone. Base jumping. That's the most thrilling experience you can think of. For some people, it's the thought of boarding an airplane, flying high into the sky, flinging themselves out of the plane, and hurtling toward the ground with only a parachute to prevent certain death. Way back in 1978, filmmaker Carl Bowenish, Jr., along with his wife, Jean, and friends Phil Smith and Phil Mayfield, climbed to the top of El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. They then ran to the edge and flung themselves off the top, releasing a ram air parachute a few seconds later to slow their descent. In the process, they invented a new sport called base jumping, which is basically like skydiving without the airplane. Base jumping consists of parachuting from fixed objects. In fact, the acronym BASE comes from the four main categories of objects thrill seekers jump from: buildings, antennas, spans, bridges, and earth, cliffs, for example. Base jumping is considered an extreme sport because it is extremely dangerous. To date, over 300 base jumpers have died as a result of accidents that occurred during base jump attempts. Regular skydiving is much safer than base jumping. Base jumpers must overcome two major obstacles that skydivers don't face: low altitude and proximity to the object they're jumping from. Skydivers usually deploy their parachutes at about 2,000 feet in elevation. Base jumpers, however, often jump from objects well under 2,000 feet tall. This means base jumpers must open their parachutes very quickly after they jump, and there isn't much time to deal with any problems that might arise. Rugby. With 15 burly players on either team smashing against each other for 80 minutes, there'll definitely be sickening injuries. With the only protection being a mouthguard and spiked boots, players have to carry the ball down the field. Rugby players use their whole bodies to play the game, leading to the controversial use of shoulder barging, body checking, and the lifting tackle. These plays contribute to the concussions, torn ligaments, dislocated shoulders, and even tetraplegia that players can end up with. Recent data shows that the repeated concussions also puts players at risk of developing chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, brain damage, and dementia. Since 2001, collisions and rough tackles in rugby have led to the deaths of over a dozen professional players. It's not surprising that approximately 1 in 4 rugby players will be injured during the season, and it's rare to watch a match these days without seeing a player go off the pitch injured. Car racing. With cars hurtling across the track, NASCAR, or Sand Dakar Rally, at over 150 miles per hour, accidents are almost guaranteed. As car technology improves every year, one would think races should be safer, but in reality, they are not. With factors like the weather and driver error, auto racing is still one of the most dangerous sports in the world. Blitzing around a course at an average speed of 175 miles per hour, in a carbon fiber box, while trying not to crash is for the very brave or very stupid. Drivers are protected by fire retardant suits and helmets, but those don't help in all accidents. Common injuries include smashed bones, excessive blood loss, trauma to the head, etc. The Indianapolis 500 has been held since 1911 and has shaped everything from the culture to the memorabilia associated with racing. But even the Indy 500 has led to 41 deaths since inception. In more recent times, there have been over 40 driver deaths at major racing circuits since 2001. Surfing. Big wave surfing is a discipline of surfing in which surfing maestros paddle into or are towed onto waves of the height of at least 20 feet. The most coveted crown is to ride an intimidating 100-foot wave, which offers a prize of $100,000. Some of the biggest hazards of this sport include drowning and being pulled into the water by the current, or even getting smashed against the hidden underwater rocks. It is also not impossible to get whacked by the surfing board, even in normal surf conditions. Climbing. It is not too hard to comprehend that mountain climbing essentially involves the risky activity of climbing up and down the highest of natural rocks, i.e., mountains, and every element of this activity is risky. The climber can receive different physical injuries like twisted ankles, sprained muscles, torn ligaments, broken bones, back injury, concussion, or frostbite during the heavy physical activities or from falls. Weather changes can be lethal, one can lose path easily, and deaths are quite common. Boxing. A contact sport where the participant's sole goal is to punch his opponent. It doesn't come as a surprise that this isn't an injury-free sport. Statistics reveal that 90% of boxers suffer brain damage during the course of their career. They could even be prone to diseases like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's later in their lives. The most common boxing injuries are bruising to the face, hands, and ribs, boxer's fractures, carpal bossing, cuts, shoulder dislocation, and concussion. Sounds scary, doesn't it? But with proper protective gear, the risk of sustaining injuries can be minimized. Equestrian. So how dangerous can horse riding actually be? You might be surprised, but any type of horse riding is dangerous. There's no way around it. Getting on the back of an unpredictable moving living creature that weighs 8 times more than you is incredibly dangerous. No matter how much padding and protection you may be wearing, it is very hard to predict a fall or a slight stutter from a horse. The various events in equestrian disciplines can obviously lead and result in different injuries. The show jumping might seem a greater risk with the higher and more difficult jumps over the dressage, and this may be the case. Results also prove how dangerous horse riding can be when reports in 2015 concluded that 59 confirmed rider deaths had occurred between 1993 and 2015. That's an estimated global average of 2.7 deaths per year from eventing. So next time you consider an equestrian event, make sure to wear a helmet and plenty of protection. Always predict the unpredictable and have fun. This is all from today's video. Don't forget to share your views in the comments section below.